question says, I don't know how much you know about Iran. Iranian politicians are dictators, and the crisis gets worse each month. Should I stay out of it? This is written from a devotee. Should I stay out of it and stick to our spiritual practice, or should I take some particular action? I just want to do whatever we should do to be spiritually uplifting for myself and my people. Swami talked in some interesting ways about governments and national destiny. I'm actually going to, these are quotes from Master that Swami conveyed to us. Master said about Stalin in Russia, he said Stalin was personally responsible for a great many for the atrocities that he committed. He actually said of 100,000 lifetimes of suffering because of what he inflicted on so many people. Hitler, who Master said was not nearly as evil, he actually said, quote, Hitler was a Boy Scout compared to Stalin, which is a pretty astonishing statement. But he said Hitler got bad karma for what he did, there's no question. But much of what Hitler was doing, and I'm just telling you how Master put it, he said was the karma of the German people. And that it wasn't so much Hitler personally as distinct from Stalin, but Hitler was acting out the karma of the German people. Now this had to do with what the two men, what the karmic retribution against those two men would be, which Master was saying was different. This is not to excuse Hitler. It's just to tell you stunningly what Master thought of Stalin. But he also said that Hitler was an instrument of the karma, of both the karma that the Jewish people had to face and the karma that the German people had to face. I'm not going to go into discussion about why or how, even though all that could be said. About America, Master said that America overall has good karma, that the destiny of America is positive and the spirit of American people overall is good, but we have some very bad karma that we have to expiate. And he specifically spoke of the way that we exterminated the indigenous people in America. One has to imagine also that we got bad karma for slavery and for taking such a long time to get rid of it, and the racial injustice that has continued. Master didn't speak specifically about it, or Swami never heard Master speak about it, but common sense would tell you that has to be a part of it. So America has some bad karma to pay off that we haven't yet paid off. Oh, one person proposed that the horrible suffering of the Civil War, when so many people on both sides died and such terrible devastation was done, might have been some of the karma paid off from the slavery, but I don't know if any of that's true, so I don't want you to quote any of that. I'm just raising points that were raised. Swami never commented. I never heard it from Master. So those are just somebody else's ideas. But Master did speak of the indigenous people, the horrible way we simply exterminated them in order to take their land. And that America will suffer for that as a country. So it's interesting group karma of a whole country that has to be played out. And in that same context, and it's not as simple as, oh, we were bad, so bad things happen, because karma can take a long time to express itself, and it's not just a yes, no. And it's also sometimes true, and this is hard to understand also, sometimes you have karma that you might call bad karma because it results in suffering, but it's actually like perhaps a last expiation or a divine opportunity to rise in greatness against very hard times. There was a rabbi who wrote very beautifully about the experience that the Jews had in the Second World War. Was an opportunity from God to go very, very deep into their own teaching that the only meaningful reality is our relationship with God, because everything else was taken away. Now again, These are very challenging teachings, so I'm just putting it forward. It would take a much longer discussion to talk about it in detail, but these are all that he said. And when we incarnate in a particular place, it doesn't mean that we were part of the whatever age it was when the negative suffering karma was set in motion, but it's appropriate for us to be part of that group at this time. Now, how powerfully that karma is ours personally, and how much we're just more or less of a spectator to what's going to happen. In the same way Swami talked about the leaders of the country, he would talk about the elections like in the US, and the outcome would depend on the karma of the country, which is of course a way standing back from it, rather than it depends on whether I get out there and get everybody to vote. It's like the outcome is going to depend on the karma of the country. Like the forces, what we see in front of us is just one chapter in a very long saga where America, which is the country I live in, it has a destiny that started before, the present time, and it has a destiny that's going to go out into the future. When you realize that Master was William the Conqueror, and Master was also a Spanish king, Fernando III, and in both of those incarnations, Master played an extraordinary role in the destiny of the planet. He took a major role in world history. And, Master helped establish the country of England. Kriyananda was William's son, who then became King Henry. The system of laws of personal rights that eventually led to the founding of America. And the same when Master was Fernando, and Kriyananda was Alfonso X. Alfonso, again, was the son of Yogananda, who was the King Fernando. Alfonso created a whole series of laws, just fair laws. Those laws were transferred from Spain to the American Southwest and became instrumental in the system of laws that became the American government. There's a picture of Alfonso X in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. So you see there's this huge cosmic energy moving around where the destinies of nations, and therefore the destinies of planets, and therefore the destinies of millions of people, are not being acted out by the elected leaders. The elected leaders are there to act out the cosmic plan. And Swamiji writes in The New Path, in one of the last chapters, he talks about this world is not run by the people who appear to have power. Those people are being guided and inspired. They're not always good people, but their opportunities are being provided to them by the enlightened masters. And Swami talks about these great spiritual nations that just from higher levels of reality are giving all of us the spiritual opportunity we need to learn the lessons we need, to free ourselves from those vrittis, to allow the kundalini to rise, to bring ourselves to our true destiny. Our nationalities, our countries, our politics, they're just way stations along the way from delusion to freedom. So all of that is the big picture. And I remember when I was with Swamiji in Goa, Italy, India, and we were on holiday there. We went on holiday there, not every year, but often for a number of years. And there was a dining room, and there were often people from all over the world there. And we were sitting at dinner one night, and Swami heard a language that he didn't recognize. And Swami spoke 8 languages and had traveled all over, so he was intrigued. And Swami was he followed an intuitive flow. And the people speaking that language looked very attractive to him. It was 2 couples and a single man, I think. And so Swami just went over and joined their table, asked them what language they were speaking, talked to them. It turned out they were Iranian. I don't know if they still lived in Iran or not, but they were Iranian. They were speaking Persian, if I have that correct. And everything was, in the politics, I think America and Iran were at war with each other, and if we weren't at war, we were hating each other for one reason or another, as people do, maybe with good cause. But it doesn't matter. That's where it was. So there we were in India, neutral ground, and we had nothing against each other. Swami talked to them about a roommate he'd had who'd been from that country, and Swami said, he mentioned his name, he said, did he become well known? Swami said, he seemed to me like the kind of person who had become well known. And it turned out he was known all over the country. Swami said, was he a good man? So these Iranians said, the government called him a bad man, so the people all knew he was a good man. That's how they explained it. And the next morning, Swami came down to breakfast and he had a little package with him. And then when he saw this same group, he went over, he sat with them for a little while. He came back without the package. So he began to tell us sort of the conversation with them. And he had gone there, he'd found some little something in his room, his own possession, and he wrapped it up and he brought it to them. And he sat at their table and he said, when good people have bad governments, he said, there's very little that we can do. He said, but I at least want you to, but at least heart to heart, we can still be friends. And then he gave the group this little present, whatever it was. And Swami's eyes he had tears running down his face when he was telling us this. And so did we, because good people get caught with bad governments. Just before World War II, Swami spoke fluent German. He spoke 4 languages before he was 10, Romanian, English, German, and French. And he traveled in Germany and he met many wonderful German people. Then World War II started, and horrible things happened. And Swami knew that he knew many wonderful German people. But when good people have bad governments, there's very little we can do. So now specifically to your question, which quite honestly is a question that I ask and many of us ask. On one hand, even though it appears as though we have influence, you also have to be practical in your idealism. And so one may have the idea that I have a righteous thing that I could say and I could demonstrate, or I could take a stand and I could do this. But many noble gestures are just that. They're noble gestures. And sometimes in some environments where it is astonishingly dangerous to stand up, one has to decide whether I was born to die for this cause. And sometimes we are born to die for this cause, and we know that we are, or to sacrifice our life in some perhaps even terrifying manner. But we might know that I was born for this moment. There's a wonderful little saying that I have from St. Joan of Arc, who was moved by God to pick up arms as a woman and go fight to free her, to fight for her king in France. And her words were, I am not afraid, I was born for this. So sometimes I am not afraid because I was born for this. But it is also not considered wise to throw your life away in a foolish cause just because you can, because you have the opportunity to do that. So one has to think very, very carefully about, why am I here? What are my choices? How can I serve? And what would be the best use of my energy? So the answer to all the difficulties that we have in this world, all of it, it's a battle of light and darkness. In Autobiography of a Yogi, there is quotes from Babaji and Jesus are greatly concerned about the direction of civilization with its race hatred and sectarianism and increasing violence and materialism, and they have planned the salvation of this age, which is to bring humankind back to its awareness of God's presence in our lives and our unity across all of these national and ideological borders as children of God. But this is a long-range strategy. When I went to India for the first time, and I looked out the window and I saw people sleeping on the streets, and I saw crowds of impoverished people, I just saw things I had never seen because I had never traveled outside the USA and Western Europe. But I looked out the window and I thought, we have all the technology, we have all the money to make this planet heaven on earth. people don't want to. We don't have the will. We don't have the willingness, and we don't have the consciousness, because this is a planet of light and darkness. And even the darkest people are still children of God. There's a divine drama that's playing out here that is not susceptible to just human analysis and without the cosmic perspective I was trying to bring to it. It's yugas shifting from one to another, and when the planet is dark, darker souls get a chance to act out their darkness. And those of us who are children of the light, our primary job is to increase the light. And when people ask Swami about political activism and so on, he would say, if you feel inspired by God to do it, deeply inspired by God, then go forth courageously, do it as well as you can, but be an instrument of the light. If you get into a political arena and all you're doing is you're fighting with the same anger that is being directed at you, you're not really acting for the light. You're just getting sucked into the darkness. So it's a very subtle question. And most of us feel essentially powerless. I vote. For years I didn't even vote, but more recently I do cast a ballot because the issues are getting rather extreme in USA politics. But I feel like it's the karma of the country, and the karma of the country is more than just today. But I consider myself intensely politically active because I am constantly working to radiate the right consciousness and to help uplift and inspire others to radiate the right consciousness. Because if the force of light increases, that's how you drive the shadow back. You drive the shadow back by increasing the light. So yes, if you feel just to do your spiritual practices and uplift and love those around you and create a magnetic force of faith and devotion to God in your own heart and as far out as your aura can reach, that is serious political work as far as I'm concerned. And because I've learned a lot over the years about what happened in Germany and in Europe during the Second World War, being of Jewish heritage, I've read of many heroes and things like this. In my mind, I give it a very dramatic name because one of the heroes that particularly has stayed in my heart was some woman who smuggled Jewish babies out of the Warsaw Ghetto. I mean, it was just she rescued several thousand babies from what eventually was a mass extinction there. I mean, it's too horrible even to think about because it gives you nightmares. But it happened. It happened in the living memory of people who are alive now, and that there was a moment when she had to risk her life to do it. So I always have in the corner of my awareness this question, is this the moment when the moral imperative is so tremendous that every other consideration is swept aside? So it's a question that, again, it has to be answered very personally. Just to protest because what's going on is bad and you have to really think carefully if that's what you're being called to do. Not just merely what's going on around you, but if that's what you're being called to do. What it does to your consciousness. If you can do it with an uplifted, peaceful consciousness, so you actually are contributing to the upliftment of light and not just to the increase of controversy. That's a very important question. It's also a question of what is the jeopardy? What is the jeopardy versus the gain? Now, I'm not living in your country. The USA is in quite a weird, for our history, a weird position, and I constantly ask myself, is this the point at which the moral issue has become so intense? I don't know. It was a very interesting conversation between Swami Kriyananda and this Indian guru named Sant Keshavadas. Keshavadas has been off the planet for maybe 20 years now, but he and Swamiji were talking about exactly what we're talking about here, which is the different societies, the abuses that were going on in government, the evolution from Kali Yuga to Dwapara, the long-range vision of how Divine Mother is giving all souls a chance. And this is an opportunity when many dark souls are given a chance to express themselves. And yes, these are challenging teachings, and this is why a lot of people reject the idea of God altogether. But these are interesting nonetheless. And they were saying that before there is going to be a clear confrontation between light and darkness, they said darkness will fight with itself. And only after darkness fights with itself for a while and is weakened, then it will become more clear. Master actually spoke of global conflict, in which I think he said America and India would stand together against a great deal of the rest of the world. And the light and darkness would be more clear cut. So oftentimes when I look at politics and I see what's going on, I can see terrible and less terrible. And I can even see goodness, but it's everything is so corrupted in so many ways, it doesn't look to me like a clear picture. But the clear picture of where light exists is in my relationship to the divine, my capacity to stay in tune with that, and whatever little ability I have to inspire spiritual upliftment in others. That's clear to me. That's a clear action for the light. And so I will continue to do that unless and until something else calls me. I don't live in Iran. I have no doubt that what you say is the situation is terrible. So I would suggest that you pray very, very deeply and ask Divine Mother to make clear to you what your destiny might be in this moment. I will add to this, when Master was in India in 1935, he was approached by two young men who wanted Master to help them lead a violent revolution against the British rule in India. Master declined, saying that India would be freed in his lifetime by non-violent means, which of course came true with Mahatma Gandhi in 1947. But Master didn't discourage, perhaps even encouraged, those two young men to go ahead and do what they felt to do, and they did. They stole rifles from somewhere or got arms somewhere, eventually were arrested and executed. And Swami, I believe, or someone asked Master, how could you encourage them to do that when you knew what the results would be? Master said it was their karma. Meaning it was the right thing for them to do. Who knows what destiny was behind that? From the divine point of view, you see, if you fulfill your duty, even if you have to sacrifice your life to do it, it's still been a victorious life. So it was the destiny of those men, either because it was a noble sacrifice or because they had to learn the futility of a violent choice. Master did not explain. But one way or another, it was necessary for their soul's development, so Master didn't interfere. So see, these are not clear-cut questions, and I don't pretend to have clear-cut answers. I just say all of us who are devotees are standing and watching and waiting to see. And, you know, I have one more point to say about this. Throughout the whole world, and probably in every nation of the world, there are wonderful people attuned to the light. And in all countries right now, there are also people very dark who are being instruments of the shadow in all kinds of really awful ways. And according to Master, this is not going to end well. There will be violence, there will be war. I recently was working with a number of letters that Swami wrote on the subject of Master's predictions about what's coming. It was 3 classes in this 50-class series I was giving from the book Divine Friendship. But we're actually going to pull those letters out, those 5 hours of class out, and call it Paramahansa Yogananda's Predictions for the Future, because I went into all of this at great length. But Master said that this is, let me just think, I lost my train of thought there, that this is that there will be a real conflict. It will really come to a head. And many people will die because it will probably be a nuclear war. My lifetime, the lifetime of children or grandchildren, I don't know. Master made it seem like it was imminent in 1950, 70 years ago. And certainly the world has continued to degenerate, and there's been violence. There are millions of refugees. Things are not looking good. But what Master also said was, once that's over, there will be 300 years, he said, of peace and prosperity on the globe. And when all of that is finally done, and those shadow people are done doing the awful things that they're doing, all of us light people all over the planet are just going to come out of the smoke, clasp hands across so-called borders, hug each other, recognize each other, and we'll know just what to do, because it's so self-evident what to do. We love each other. We take care of each other. We love each other as children of God. We're not going to have to learn. We already know. But it's not our turn yet. Our turn is coming. And this is the other reason why, if we simply do our divine assignment with great zeal, the very best we can, we're laying the foundation. But will we live to see it? I don't know. But that foundation will still be laid, and it will form the basis, Master said, of a whole new society. But not quite yet. So that's not so cheerful, but there it is. And you might also enjoy those classes on Master's predictions, because I've never talked about it at such length, and I had Swami's words in front of me. Okay.